Hey, how's it going? Here, first, before I start talking, please look at my signs. Okay. I hope that is good enough. So today, I have a subject that I chose that I wanted to talk about. And it is, first it started out with why do I love superhero movies? And then it turned into why do we love superhero movies? And then it changed again into why do lightworkers like superhero movies? I don't have any empirical evidence to point to that being the case other than my own experience, but I can't help but see. Oh, okay, I know what that is. I put a new treatment on my hair to try to counter affect the balding that apparently I have alopecia, so, there's salt granules, Epsom salt on my head. Anyway, so yeah, so since I don't have, statistical evidence that points to the fact that light workers or star seeds or just somebody into the whole metaphysical thing has a particular affection for superheroes or superhero stories. So I will just talk about it from my own point of view. Oh shoot, hold on a second. This is not mine. Not that there's any exchange of money happening here, but I don't want people to think I'm appropriating their content. So, okay. I wanted to kind of examine why do I like superhero movies. And it's not just the movies, it's the idea of superheroes, and also the idea that they are a reflection of us, their modern mythology, and kind of like our aspirations in a lot of ways, especially from my point of view. If you're a light worker and you are maybe endowed with certain abilities, or you may have a strong intuition, or you may be a psychic medium, or the ways that you can have some sort of extrasensory ability are pretty wide, pretty vast. So I'm not gonna. It's probably like a fingerprint situation. So, once I feel like, judging from the evidence of all of the videos about the subject in all kinds of ways, it is popular in society. It's pop culture, and so becoming acceptable, and you can definitely hear it in television shows, scripted and not. What they're talking about, they're using the terminology of the metaphysics and the new age stuff, and that's great. But one thing that is always a trend in the subject is enhancing yourself or your skills and your abilities, and not in the ways that are typically thought of doing those things, like enhancing yourself. Yes, of course, being in shape and taking care of your body, that's a thing across the board, but in one sense, it's you do it for more for the appreciation that you want or need to be reflected back at you, to be told how good you look and what a good job you did, and how, like, how did you do that? I want to do that too. And then there's like, which is fine, I just feel like the making it about meeting standards takes away something vital, as opposed to changing your diet to, yes, be healthy and yes, be in shape, but the advantage is you're more directing inward, because that's where you want to develop the things that you want to achieve, that you want to aspire to. So, like, say a superhero can fly, and maybe you start out with whatever kinds of abilities you have to fly or levitate, because that's the closest thing I've seen a human be able to do through means of meditational resources, metaphysical and meditational resources. But Buddhist monks have been known to meditate. I just saw a picture of one the other day, and this kid, I don't even know if it was a monk. It might have just been a Buddhist kid, but I think it was like an initiate, a young monk, whatever you call those. Young monks. It's a song. Sorry. It was just a picture. I feel like it was a genuine old picture because it was black and white. I didn't bother looking for AI because I've seen them over the years before AI was a thing. So, and it's pretty well known in a lot of circles where you do not hear them talking about it, but they know that meditation and doing things like fasting and sort of removing all of the impediments of like the material world from your inner processes, yes, your mind, but when you begin to meditate, you to advance, you have to learn to shut off your mind as well. So it's learning all of these things, usually for most of us. For some people it comes naturally, but generally you don't like start meditating and find yourself floating the next day. At least I have not heard of that. What I have heard of is that you have to devote time and passion, I guess, or not passion, I guess, also. Like, you have to, it has to be the thing that you intend to do, that you want to do, that you're driven to do, I guess, to be this monk person and shed like everything that you are sort of born into. Although in a country where you're born and you become a Buddhist monk, it's different than it is in Western countries, like the capitalist rule of law, whatever, is not that's not there. That's not what they're about. That's not what the practice is about. It's less about attaining things for yourself than it is about attaining things for the benefit of everyone else and then yourself. But in the case of when you're on the plane and you're the adult with a child and you have to breathe out of the mask before you give it to your child, which I don't have a kid, but I can understand how, if it seems like in the moment the plane is going to fall out of the sky and you want to do everything you can to reassure and protect your child, you do have to make sure that you have enough oxygen so your brain can function well, and then you can give it to the child so they can be calmed. And it's like that priority makes sense. And so in this case, I feel like before you can levitate or float or fly, you got to do some work. And even I think people that come into life with sort of more of these abilities, these faculties switched on and operational, and even those people I know have to sometimes be educated about what they're capable of, what they could do with their powers, because I hate to be corny, but it kind of comes with great responsibilities. You could go light or dark with that kind of work and information and abilities. And so people go, there's places you can go where you can learn how to work your system, your operating system. Or in the case of the Buddhist monk, you fast and you meditate for hours and hours and hours, and you work together as a community. And in places like Tibet, I've seen shows about it. There are Buddhist temples that are run by the monks, and they either beg all day or collect food. Like, they all have a job, but at the end of the day, they go back to the temple, turn in what they've collected, food or money to buy more food or power or rent or medicine, like whatever is needed. But they take what's contributed and what's given, and then in turn bring it back to the temple and contribute it there. And then it gets used, but then the function of the use flows outward again back into the community, because they may prepare like a giant, just like an army-sized meal for the monks and the people who work for the temple and the community, and just for the community in general. And anybody is welcome to come by and eat. They feed. The things get emptied every day. These gigantic cauldrons of food that they make, they get cleaned out and then replenished every day. So it's like a cycle they go through. But that's just part of what the monk life is about, and part of what they're learning. That is also part of the sitting there meditating and ending up in the air with no visible means of support to help you do that, other than through your thoughts and intentions and vibration. Very important, which we don't hear enough about how that works and how that works with us, and what we have the potential to do with it if we begin to learn how to work with it and work that operating system. You can make very interesting things happen. And I think there's a lot of documentation, there's a lot of video about how this stuff is deliberately kept from people, because if people feel powerless and don't know stuff, then they can have the wool pulled over their eyes, and it could be a sheep skin the size of the whole nation, or a globe. I'm saying, there's a lot of wool pulled over our eyes, and you can find out probably a lot more easily than you could 50, 100, 1,000, 3,000, 300,000 years ago. The information is accessible, but is your mind open to it so that you can go find it, or it can find you? Because that's kind of how it works with vibration. So it's not just about getting money or whatever, but when you're ready to learn something like that, and it's not accessible in the typical ways, you can't just go out and Google it. You can, but you still have to put some effort into it. So all of that, it was just to sort of say that we can also, our regular old human mortal selves can be supers in lots of ways. And I think the reason why there's so much of that content out there is to constantly to remind us of the fact that to a certain degree we can do a lot of those things that are in these superhero stories. So they're like these metaphorical morality tales, and I don't know. I just feel like it's, again, that's why I feel like it's the new mythology. So I pulled some cards to go along with this subject, and I got this here. And it says, to praise the sun is to praise your own eyes, seeing clearly, gratitude, happy with your life. As far as superheroes go, I thought of Superman right away because he gets his strength and his power from the sun, and he's all about truth, honesty, and the American way, and he's just so happy to be anywhere with people. If he's in Smallville, he's all about that farm boy life and community helpful guy, and he just like just all of the good qualities that one would aspire to be. And he can fly, and he's super strong, and again, you know, the sun fuels his power. And I'm just gonna sidetrack here for a second and mention this book of wisdom that I came across recently, and that contains a lot of stuff about what's right in front of us that we're not recognizing is ancient, and is also saying a certain something that we're not aware. It's a subconscious thing, and often it's kind of to our detriment. But what this guy said about us humans and feeding ourselves, we don't need feeding, we need charging, is his contention. And when we feel hungry, what we need is not food, but light from the sun. And I talked about this recently, because it came from this guy, this book of wisdom guy too. We wear glasses, and I know that when you wear glasses, it's just a progression to stronger and stronger prescriptions. It's never about your eyes actually getting healed, so you could go back to your natural, normal state of not needing glasses. And so he was saying that we're deterred from looking from the sun and eclipses, and it's going to harm you, and it's so bad. But we just saw President Trump, when he was president, look right at an eclipse, and I think every child has done that, like just at least gotten a quick glance, and to come away not blind, and also stared at the sun and come away not blind. So it's interesting. This guy says that they tell you not to look at the sun, but you should be looking at the sun because it can heal you and help you see better, not blind you. So back to the subject. I just thought that was an interesting little point. So the next card I pulled was this one. And actually, I didn't pull, like, I think the last two I pulled them out of the deck because they jumped into my hand. The other ones fell or flew out, so that always makes me feel like there's a strong connection to what I'm talking about too much, I guess. Shut up and talk about the card. Okay. So the card says, where there is ruin, there is hope for a treasure. Rough time, good outcome. Everything will work out okay. This card made me think of Batman, because Batman is a human guy, and he's got to use, like, human stuff, and so that's why I felt like the tent and the camping motif was like prepper DIY. Don't have the superpowers, you know, you're just like basic compared to a super, but still strong. Like, we know that Batman is highly respected amongst the Justice League, for example, and a lot of other people, but then he's also a vigilante, which is frowned upon. You know, but Batman started out as, a very well-off child, but horribly lost his parents right in front of him, so traumatized. In the metaphysical sort of vernacular, that is like a hero's journey right there. So there it is, just right in his life. And he, like Superman, is very virtuous. Like, he will not kill. also like Superman. At least not on purpose. It's just not part of his moral backbone thing, whatever. And he does make good out of his trauma. Instead of becoming a killer himself, he becomes a vigilante, but I mean, he wants to protect people from crime and the type of traumatization that he went through. That is not a bad thing to want. But for some reason, like, society would make a vigilante a bad guy. The same way they don't want you to know that the sun will actually heal your eyes, and that's a terrible thing to do to people, I think, to not let them be aware of a free, healthful treatment that is not going to hurt them with I don't even know however long, really long campaign of this is going to really harm you, and it's not true. That's harmful. Like, lying, feeding people lies is not a good diet. And so, sidetrack again. I live in Washington State, where in Seattle there was a guy for a while who was a vigilante superhero on the streets of Seattle, and he did things like break up fights and stop misdemeanor crimes, and he wore a costume to, like, hide his identity, which is totally a superhero thing, like the hidden identity. And this guy had pretty good reason. He was laughed at, he was ridiculed, he was publicized. The police were aware of him. I'm pretty sure they would have told him to stop. But was he doing a bad thing? I don't think so. But people have this idea that, like, vigilantism, which is a form of service and helping people, is somehow a bad thing, and it's against the law and leave it to the police. I'm not sure. I have mixed feelings about police in certain situations, so I mean, I just feel like he was in the good column, this guy, and then people just didn't like it. You know, they were just like, vigilante, he's bad, even though he's out there, like, stopping people from getting raped and robbed. And what is bad about that? I don't understand. Somebody outed him, and it turns out the guy worked in a, maybe not a preschool, but with really young kids, and so people flip out about it. And I'm like, he wasn't a rapist, though. He wasn't a robber. He's out there stopping that. And people, he lost his job. You know how that goes. He may have lost his home. I believe he had a family of his own with children, and I can't imagine that losing everything for this particular thing, with the pressures of society on her too. She would have been like, why are you out there doing this vigilante? We got kids and a family at home. Why aren't you protect? Like, I could just see how it would not have gone well. And I don't know what he's up to now. I think he had to stop, like, back at that time when this was in the news, but he may have returned to it. I know that it would need financing, though. I know that you can't just be all local vigilante man's GoFundMe. I mean, maybe that wouldn't be a terrible thing. I don't know, but I'm just saying, Batman is rich, so not everybody knows that, but maybe it's just sort of that's his superpower. Like in the movie, he's asked, which movie? I can't remember. It was a Batman Superman movie with Ben Affleck, and he was asked, what's your superpower? And he said, I'm rich. It kind of is a superpower, but not necessarily a good one all the time. So, the thing about the supers is that they can be a positive force, or they can be a really destructive force. And even when they're being a positive force, they can be really destructive, depending on what the villain is that they're fighting. Like if it's Starro, which if you're a DC fan, you will know that is a giant space sea star, starfish, entity that is kind of evil when it starts out, and when I first heard of it, and now it's kind of, sometimes it helps. That's how comics are. That's how life is. And those stories, like I said, they're like the modern mythology, but they also reflect, I think, our aspirations or what our capabilities could be if we directed our energies in the right direction, like for the right reasons, and tuned our vibrations the right way so that we are magnetic and draw the things we want toward us rather than, being forceful and taking what we want when it's not freely given. So this card is the next one that I pulled, and it's a sailboat you see there, and the seas are flat, and it says, "Let the water settle and the stars will be mirrored in you. Take a break, time away brings clarity." So I was just talking about how the supers are a destructive force sometimes when they are helping and when they're not, for sure, because in the comics, where I don't know if you've noticed, but I haven't bought a comic in a long time, but I have watched animated comic stories on the television or on the YouTube, and I have noticed over the years that the cities, if there's anybody around before stuff starts happening, and it's usually not very many people, so the cities look sparsely populated, and then when stuff starts going down, like energy beams are happening and things and objects are flying in from space and crashing into people, buildings and people, cars getting knocked all over the place, bridges getting knocked down, the stuff where superheroes have to come in and hold up the bridge and, fly the catch the school bus that got flung over the, you know what I'm saying, you've seen these movies. And then when the things are fixed, presumably there is a moment in between where things get rebuilt, reconstructed, the people come back from wherever they so rapidly fled from, because there is a comic book, I think it was Marvel that put it out, and it probably still is out. It was called Damage Control, and they were like a company that would come in and fix the massive damage from these superhero incidents. And so that, I guess, is what happens in the downtime in between, is like the damage control has to come in and fix everything. So that story's out there. But like I was saying, I've noticed gradually over the years, the people are just, they don't even talk about it. They're just like, people are there and shit starts going down, and then whoop, there's nobody anywhere. All of the buildings just look abandoned. Streets have nothing. Even the cars are just gone. Like, it's just buildings and streets and maybe a street pole. Like, it's kind of weird if you notice it. It didn't happen all at once. It was gradual. So I feel like there's an untold story there, and that has to be what is getting all of the people out of town and out of the way so freaking fast before the destruction starts happening. Because I can think back and remember comic panels of like Darkseid, breaking into the dimension, and there being people on like a busy Gotham street, oh whoa, or Metropolis, oh whoa, what's that? And there's no people with reactions anymore, and people with kids and walking little dogs and flowers on windowsills like signs of life. Those are gone. But like I said, there is the occasional sign of life that rapidly disappears, and I want to know, how does that happen? That sounds like a story worth telling, in my opinion. Okay, and so, do I have these in the right order? Nope. Oh, Yeah, I do. Okay, so the next card I pulled was these. Oh, don't jump out of my hand. The whole jumping thing. Don't go overboard. Just an illustration. Oh, pardon. This one says, be with those who help your being. Like attracts like. Choose friends carefully. Well, that makes me think of the hidden identity thing, because, well, the superheroes do it for a number of different reasons. I think mainly it's to protect the people that they care about that are close to them, so that their enemies don't end up going after them to hurt the superhero. And it's also about like a human thing, like find your tribe, find the place where you don't feel like there's opposition against you, or that would like take your side, you know, have your back if there was some form of opposition against you. And these guys, dolphins, are just their body is a smile. I know it's upside down, but they're just like happy creatures, and then their faces do a smiling looking thing too. They're known to be intelligent, but I often have a problem understanding what exactly do you mean by intelligent when you say that about an animal scientist, because they have big brains larger than our own. Their life is completely different. Their bodies are completely different. So in their different medium, there's work for them very well. Ours, kind of okay. We have some implements that we sometimes add, and we definitely need breathing apparatus if we're going to go below the surface for longer than we can hold our breath. Or we have to be in like some sort of protective vehicle, because we can't deal with pressures of going deeper. Fish or dolphins, because they're mammals, but both of those species can do that in the water that they're native to. And so the same is true of a dolphin on land. They can breathe the oxygen, but that's about it. Like, they get out of the water, they can't, they're not motile. It's not a conducive to life or functionality medium for a dolphin to be out of the water. But that doesn't mean their intelligence is less. They're just not physically equipped for the medium they happen to be in. But okay, so back to the intelligence thing with the larger brain than ours, which usually means that the being is going to be a lot smarter. They say it has the intellect of 65, which I think is sort of upper low range of someone with Down syndrome. I think they're smarter than that. I don't know if our metric is correct. And also, I don't know what we're taking into account for their level of intelligence when... are they taking into account the differences in their physical bodies to ours, and then the medium that they live in to ours? And I just don't even know. But it's beside the point. If anything, symbolically, they give us joy. They make us think of happiness, and that is not nothing. When I feel down, I watch animal or cat videos in particular, because I love cats. The things that they do that are cute and weird are the things that I love about them, and I like to watch them. Sort of in the superhero or the hero vein, or the service and helping vein, which I feel like is adjacent to the sort of superhero love that I have, is like the Star Trek, Star Wars, space opera sort of continuum of the battle of good and evil there. And again, like a bunch of metaphors, but also I think disclosure of what there actually already is a lot of times. It either hasn't like made its way to us from where stuff originates, which is usually the military or the government. Like, people invent stuff and then like the government scoops them up or whatever. So I don't know, but it seems like the stuff that we use a lot, more than we probably realize, first goes through use in the military. I don't know why I went there, because I was talking about the service thing. Oh, well, the military is a service deal. Like, you go there, even if you go there because you need money and you need a job, you know that you're going there to be in service of the country, for the people of this country, sometimes for the people of the country where you happen to be in. I hesitate a little to use the word that we invade, but I feel like we come horning in with an idea like we're going to be the liberators, and the people are like, we don't need to be liberated. What are you doing here? Get out. Like, I think there's some kind of a dissonance a lot of times. Like, I feel like our government is that Charlie Brown voice authority that's just honking away and making all these statements, and the people that they're making them to and about are like, that has nothing to do with us. You're just like coming in here and conquest is what colonizers do. So it can be a destructive force or a good force. But I also really relate with like Star Trek, any version of it, but particularly for me, the one with, why can I not remember it now? The one with Jonathan Archer. I can't remember the actor's name, and I totally know it. Come on, brain. Begins with an E. Star Trek Experience. No. The guy from Quantum Leap. I know his name. It's right on the tip of my brain. Hold on. I'm going to tell you the show I'm trying to talk about here in a second. Away with you. Enterprise. Star Trek Enterprise. For some reason, that one, I can switch that on and my blood pressure just sinks to like, bitchin', you're the healthiest you've ever been. I don't know why that is. But most of the time, it's not stressful. Same thing with Deep Space Nine. There's something about that whole world that I just lock right into, and I just feel good and comfortable and relaxed. And so if I'm stressed out, it's interesting because the Book of Wisdom guy was talking about different types of inhalation of smoke, and how, like, my preferred burning leaf to inhale is the cannabis one, and that has ways that you can have keys to spiritual doorways, to open the doorways. Or not. I mean, it really depends on your intent and state of mind and, you know, where you want to go. But one thing that the guy said that really, like, I almost kind of playfully was like, excuse me? But they were saying, like, you shouldn't just, if you do it every day, it makes you lazy. Seth Rogen, just be quiet with that. That's not an absolute. And it's not with me either. I'm doing stuff all day. All day is working toward what I'm doing here and what I'm going to write and then post. So everything is not absolute about that. But I was going to say something about the inhaling of the smoke. Well, I guess I did say it, but I was leading to something with it. Oh, well, maybe I'll come back to it. Wait, it was some Star Wars. Oh, so Enterprise can get dark. Deep Space Nine can get dark. Star Wars I can also slot right into. Also can get really dark, but it has all of these themes with like the Force, and that appeals to me. And that feels like a disclosure of like what, like Yoda with Luke on the planet Hoth. Is that the one where they were on like the swamp planet, and he was very first training Luke in Jedi things in A New Hope? That is just, for me, like a way of saying, hey, you know, if Luke the human can do it, so can you. Like, this kind of stuff is accessible to you. And again, in the show that they just canceled on Disney Plus, began with an A, like Apprentice or something like that, Acolyte. One of the main characters was a Jedi, and when one of the other main characters came to speak to the guy, he was sitting in a lotus position, but he was also floating about 4 or 5 feet up off the floor. So, also my jam, like, it's not just meditation, it's like it's that and everything else adjacent to it, attached to it. I guess that's why I like it. It just agrees with me for some reason. Okay, so enough about that. Look inside. Look for the answer inside your question. Oh, look for the answer inside your question. Be honest with yourself. You know the truth. Well, that is such a message of the way that we come into life on this planet. Kind of not, most of us, like I said, some of us come in with stuff switched on, and you might not know everything about everything that's going on with you and your abilities, but you have something that might give you more clarity on things than other people might have. And so anyway, people always need a little more education. It's never not helpful. And you can learn, like, white magic or dark, I don't want to say black magic, light or dark magic, you know, like your intent is either to be helpful and be of service, which is service, not surface, to be of service, which is like a loving, generous, kind way to be, and that breeds more happiness than the opposite, which would be force and anger and fear and manipulation and all the like everything messing with you that is interfering with your just natural happiness and, you know, independent being. Like, you're not bothering anybody else, and, you know. So we can, it's like I don't know if I even, that wasn't on here. So when I was writing my notes, here, let me get it. It's not one of those pages and pages things. So the super is held to a higher standard. They're going to be smarter or stronger. With Superman, for example, he's going to want to do the right thing for people. He's going to want to protect people. He doesn't want people to harm a lot of other people for something they want for themselves. Like, he doesn't want people to be harmed at someone else's expense. And, you know, that could wear on you because you have people like, say, a Lex Luthor, where they're like, he's an alien, he's terrible, he's horrible, he's an illegal, and often, as in the case in reality with the people that get called that are immigrants, that have yet to become legal Americans, but are still here busting their butts and putting in money and to the so-called failing Social Security that they are not going to be collecting benefits from. So, you know, you got to wade through a lot of stuff and discern what's actually true. But I think that's a metaphor, like the super having to like live up to everyone's expectations, and they want to be this guiding light kind of person, and they see where they can help in society. And they also understand that not everyone is going to accept them, and things that are different, people that are different become otherized, and that's not a good place to be. It's not a good place to send someone. So they're under pressure to, like, they don't want to be a destructive power if possible. They want to be helpful, but sometimes when you're fighting a destructive power that comes flying in like a meteor from somewhere, or even something earthborn that's incredibly hazardous to life on the earth, the super is going to feel like it's their job to go in there. It's a job for Superman because they're impervious to various things. But all that considered, they can still feel a strain. You know, they will still have to go and recharge, like go to the Fortress of Solitude or the Batcave or whatever the place is for the superhero, and, you know, do their whatever they gotta do, meditate, get in the iron lung, like the tanning bed, whatever the device, be it an actual device or a figurative device. They still have to also go and figure themselves out. And, you know, they want to be a force for good generally, but sometimes they get turned. And that's kind of like, I feel like a reflection of us. Except we're not bulletproof or fireproof, and we cannot shoot, you know, beams from our eyes and melt things, and we have to find those same abilities in a different form as a mortal being, which, by the way, very important, we are mortal. We can definitely be killed, like it's a thing. But we can also be charged up by the sun, and it is very good for us, and if we don't have it, we suffer as if there's kryptonite in the room. You know, it's like almost a form of radiation poisoning because we're not getting that good radiation from the sun, and you're just sitting in the dark, and maybe that's a metaphor for your state of mind, sitting in the dark and not going out and getting in the sun and getting healthy air and light and activity to reset your brain and charge up all, like maybe that's where when the darkness comes in and your power is weak, you can't think good, you can't make good decisions. Okay, so anyway, the next card I pulled was this here card, and it made me almost say a spoonerism. It made me think of Stargirl because of the star on here. And also that looks like the ride that they'll have at like a state fair or maybe an amusement park too. But it's like a boat, like a pirate boat, and it just basically does you like a pendulum. Yeah, like the people on the boat go on like a pendulum ride, pretty much. But you know, it's fun, I guess, to get your insides moved around that way. Stargirl, if you will recall, can fly. Very positive, very naive, wants to do the best things, sometimes incredibly destructive. Also a teenager, so can blow up randomly, and it could be a surprise to them too and cause all kinds of problems. But usually nothing that can't be come back from. Like if you have ever watched the show, she causes all kinds of problems sometimes because she didn't listen to what someone said, because she thought she knew better, and she doesn't understand that you're a child and you're like, well, no, Supergirl is from another planet, but same kind of issues. Teenagers are volatile. Teenage girls can be. give them powers. Give anybody young powers like that, like a car, a powerful car. Sometimes problems happen. Some can be come back from. Some are, let's face it, deadly and can't be come back from in a traditional way, but it's still a journey everybody involved has to travel because you are a part of it, and we're going to presume that the people involved are conscious of all of this stuff. And that's what we do. We go on these journeys because of stuff that happens when we interact with each other for reasons. All over the place reasons. Every situation is different. It's very subjective, I guess. So the card reads, life is a balance of holding on and letting go. Stay steady, go with the flow, do the right thing. And that's the underlying ultimate message of the good superhero. I'm not forgetting the boys or the Joker or like Lex Luthor. There are also those people, those aspects, those incidents in life, in our fantasy world that happen. It's a lateral thing. It's a mirroring. It's all revealing something to us, and when we absorb it and process it, and then in turn do whatever with it, that's part of the story. And yeah, that's part of our story. That's like part of like what is happening in our lives. And so the last one I pulled is these oil lamps, which they speak to me of like really, really old times, like antiquity. And it reads, be patient where you sit in the dark. The dawn is coming. This too shall pass, your future is bright. So I guess that's pretty good, coming after just trying to talk briefly about, I guess, the negative superheroes who mean to be destructive, who are mean, who are butthurt. Lex Luthor, rich, powerful, butthurt, can't leave Superman alone, ends up causing all kinds of destruction in the guise of being helpful. And it's usually, everybody can be spent to gain something that he wants. Those personalities exist in reality, and they are more and more coming into the light so that we can examine their behavior and see how it's affected the rest of us. I just saw it says look for the answer. I saw look for the asshole for a second. We ain't gonna have to look too hard for those because they're coming out of the woodwork every day, and that has been forecast. And also, you don't need a soothsayer when bad people have been able to do bad things for a long time. You can look real good from the outside, but you get up close and they may smell bad. They just may be bad people. They may have offensive personalities. They may be a destructive force in the pursuit of getting something for themselves, which, by the way, you can probably get it without being a destructive force. Like it wouldn't kill you to ask for help, or, you might have to get a little less because you might have to share because somebody helped you. Those are not hard things. Those are things that we start, out dealing with right away as kids. It's like if you don't have it as an adult and you're successful, you're powerful, you've done all of the things, and you're still not happy and you still don't have enough, man, it is time for you to whip out that magnifying glass and have a look at, because if you've done all the right things and you've scored like high on all the tests and stuff is still wrong, it's time for you to realize, smart guy, it's not everybody else and everything else. If the problems are always there, no matter where you are and what you do, you might be the problem. Oh, Puffer came back. Okay, I gotta go. Thank you and good night. Superhero talk.